Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcross Studios about when rock bottom saves your life. Welcome to Pantheon Repos Episode 9. Let's hop in, and I'll let Popcross take it away.
Today's episode of my ongoing series, Mytholethal Pantheon Reapers, is one that I've been very excited to write for a long time. And it kind of works as its own standalone episode because it's exclusively revolving around a very important chapter of one character's life, Alexis Jones, aka the Reaper of the Multiverse. Though if you are new to this series, I would still recommend...
By the way, yes, I understand that the last time we watched this, I accidentally said Alexa, not Alexis. I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
Starting from the beginning, I'll link the full playlist in the cards and description as usual. Now, previously on Mytholethal Pantheon Reapers, Alexis
Previously on Mytholethal Pantheon Repos.
Jones and Mythal were dragged into the Dimension of Shattered Time, F920, by the Archon Demon Kaijagrex. Both Mythal and Alexis have been to this realm before, but Alexis much more recently, when the overseer of this universe, Leonoline, was trying to convince Alexis that she needed to kill him and wipe out this entire universe because of how broken time is here and how all the people here are living alone in their own isolated realities. Alexis is incredibly hesitant to kill anyone, let alone a whole universe, and in fact, just before she and Mythal were dragged into this realm, she had hesitated too long to kill the villainous tyrant Tarsa, who's currently ravaging the multiverse. Alexis giving up the chance to kill Tarsa got Alexis's friends very frustrated with her, and she wasn't sure if she'd done the right thing herself. Mythal can see that Alexis is on the verge of a breakdown, hitting her own rock bottom, which Mythal hit her rock bottom in this same universe many centuries ago, and she considers it to have been the best thing that ever happened to her. So Mythal made the bold decision to
I wonder if we're ever going to get a lot more info on what happened on those 8 dark decades.
Push Alexis over the edge. Mythal started saying incredibly cruel things to Alexis, specifically targeting insecurities in Alexis of her own religion, Christianity, and Alexis was hurt, scared, frustrated, and stressed out enough to be pushed to the point of killing Mythal. Though Mythal's soul has technically just temporarily slipped away to go have a little chat with someone in the non-physical realm, but as far as Alexis is concerned, she just murdered someone who may have been threatening her life, but was also someone that she knew was technically trying to do what was best for the multiverse. So
not just that, but they were also a mother, a wife, and a grandmother.
Let's see how...
and a sister. Can't forget that.
Alexis copes in this chapter of Mytholethal Pantheon Reapers. Let's go.
Let's go. Hit like if you want. Subscribe. But if you feel like it. By the way, enjoy the show. Little hiccup though.
Her soul has left her body. Alexis read those words on her purple Reaper ring multiple times. Each time...
Ooh, I kind of like the image that... Damn it, I'm kind of blocking. Hold on. Okay, just moving over here for a second so I can say this. That image over there is damn cool. It's got Alexis in it, but shadowed by glass. She literally hit her rock bottom, and it's broken her.
I'm hoping they'd somehow change. They never did. Alexis's entire body was going numb. The pain and exhaustion from her battle with Tarsa, then with Mythal, was dwarfed by the terror sinking in. Again, she muttered, "Nobody is gonna forgive me for this." Before her mind could spiral further, a yellow beam exploded into Alexis's side, sending her spinning off the mountaintop.
Oh,
she barely had the energy to stop herself in midair and turn back.
You? Who cares about you? Ordis is never gonna forgive me for this.
Oh, that was Kaijagrex. I forgot he was there. And he's actually kind of pissed off for Ortis. Which honestly makes sense, because you took his wife to a different dimension that she hated it now, and now she's dead because of you. Yeah, I think Ortis is about to rip out your skull and make it a toilet.
Kaijagrex roared as he landed down next to Mythal's body. He tapped her face with his meaty hand.
Come on! Get up, God Dweller! You can't... This wasn't...
He paused and just stared at her. He raised Mythal's wrist slightly off the ground, let it go, and it just dropped. His entire body began to fume in a musty yellow haze. He stomped onto his feet.
Well, at least I can still make Elder proud and finish you off while...
But he froze.
Oh!
His eyes darted to the side. Alexis didn't know what he was doing, but was too absorbed in the sinking, churning vortex in her mind and stomach to take any action herself first.
What's going on?
A part of her almost wanted him to finish her off. At least that would mean she wouldn't have to face what she'd done. Finally, Grex sneered, turned back down to Mythil, and lifted her body over his shoulder.
Leave here to face the music whenever you want, Reaper. Stay here 100 years for all I care, but at least have the decency to leave here at the same point in time you came in. Like it or not, the multiverse needs its Reaper.
Then, he just vanished.
Okay, I don't know why, but this whole city is literally turned the Kaiju Rex on his head. First off, he started off as some kind of Archon asshole that we all hated. Now, I actually care for the guy. I don't want him to die. I want him to turn his life around, to give the whole Archon stick. Like, to become Mythil and Ortus's son-in-law. We want that!
Another wave of panic set in. Alexis flew back down to where they'd just vanished from.
Wait, what? He's gonna show them. He's taking her back to Ortus, and everyone is gonna know.
She slumped down to her knees, but quickly fell onto her side.
Actually, as long as he's in here, Mythil can now return, so boop!
Alexis just lay there. All she heard was wind and the slight shifting of dirt under her ear as her rapid panting shifted her numb body. Painfully clear reactions from her friends shook through her mind, all this time avoiding killing Tarsa, only to kill someone who would have been willing to do what Alexis hadn't.
Easily.
She imagined herself trying to make any argument in her defense, scrambling to find any justification.
She was going to kill me, I had to.
To which she knew they'd just reply,
Tarsa tried to kill you too and has killed so many more people.
Alexis muttered to herself.
I'm not a killer. I had to do it. I had to. It was like when I killed the last Reaper. I had to do it.
Thinking about the last Reaper made Alexis remember something the Reaper rings had once told her. When Borussia Eolic had possessed these powers before Alexis.
The previous Reaper, killed by Tarsa, during a very small window.
The burden had broken Borussia mentally, but the multiverse still needed a Reaper, so she'd allowed herself to fall into autopilot. Alexis glanced up at the rings hovering just above her head, like silent vultures waiting for her will to surrender. A faint surge of energy pumped through her. She snatched the red ring and smashed it on the ground. With both hands, she tried to bend it, snap it, shatter it, but it wouldn't break no matter what she did. Finally...
Yeah, quick question. What the hell are these rings made of? I mean, I know the Reaper powers as a whole are, quote-unquote demonic because they were made by the Archons, but the rings themselves... I mean, it probably would make sense if they had no actual physical form and were merely energy projections. Like, yeah, they can be touched and moved and all that, but they have nothing that can be broken, bent, or even misshapen.
She just screamed and hurled it away, only for it to stop and hover back over to her. She wanted to pray. She wanted to feel God, Christ's presence within her, but the idea of turning to God after what she'd just done felt disgraceful. That took her to thoughts of what the people in her church would think now. Even if she could have convinced any of them her Reaper powers could be used for good, there was no making that argument now. That took Alexis's mind to an even bigger concern. Would Mythil be going to hell? As much as Alexis hated everything Mythil had said, she still didn't desire that fate for her. Alexis knew Mythil had done good things, at least in her early life. She didn't deserve eternal punishment. Alexis just lay on the ground for hours. She wanted to drift off to sleep, to disappear from life for a while, but the screaming, the fury, the twister in her mind was unrelenting. Eventually, she did slip into sleep, but her nightmares ensured that slumber gave no reprieve from the torment. None of the dreams were clear scenes or settings, but they were full of the faces of her furious friends, torrents of blood washing over her, leering eyes from on high turning away from her as her body was pulled into blackened depths. She awoke, choking like the...
This, I've said it before, and I'm gonna keep saying it. This whole series would be the greatest animation in all of existence.
Blood had spilled into her throat. She was panting and sweating in the dark. As her situation set back into her waking mind, she just curled her head into her knees and cried. Her whimpers
all
echoed
you
through
can
the
do,
silent
isn't it?
mountains. When her eyes could spill no more, she glanced up at the rings again. She wanted to try breaking them once more, but didn't have the strength to even try.
Rings?
Her voice was hoarse from crying.
Ow.
What does it feel like to go into autopilot?
That was
The
some pain.
purple ring came down, and on the inside, Alexis read the words, "You will relinquish control of your body and retreat into your mind. You will have the ability..."
Ooh, this is kind of cool. Putting moments from the past into the shadowed fragments. I like that.
To be consciously aware of what the Reaper is doing, but will
Oh, and stalling. I was not expecting that, but yes.
not have to take any actions yourself. If you so choose, you'll be able to slip farther into your mind and not witness the actions at all. It will feel similar to being asleep. Did that mean she could still have nightmares? Maybe,
I would
but
assume
she
probably.
thought maybe it would be better for everyone if she just gave up control. Though part of her knew the real reason she was considering it was that she just didn't want to deal with being the Reaper anymore. Or even deal with being herself. She clenched her teeth and tucked her face back into her
It's a little bit of a coward's way out.
knees.
No. There has to be a way to fix this. The group could still forgive me. Maybe if I just agree to kill Tarsa now like they want, that will fix this. We can get back to normal. I can get back...
Do you want things to go back to normal?
Huh?
A question rang out from somewhere inside her.
What do you mean? Of course I...
But then Alexis paused and thought about it. Her normal for a while now had been internal turmoil, fear that her friends were mad at her even when they were acting otherwise. Her normal had
Oh,
become
yeah.
fearing what the people of her church would think if they found out about her Reaper powers, preventing her from enjoying her community's embrace.
I guess I don't want to go back to normal.
You gotta find a new
but I need
normal.
to find a way to make everything okay with my friends at least.
Why is that? The same voice seemed to ask. It didn't sound like her own voice, or like any specific voice, really.
Who
it
is
was
it?
quiet, clear, and unusually peaceful.
Because they're my friends. They're everything. I don't want to be alone.
But then she thought about that too. She had felt alone. She'd been feeling alone when she was with her friends and when she was in her church. Being surrounded by people hadn't changed that feeling. In
Oh.
fact, as of late, it often made her feel worse.
I think part of that may be because she's still been hiding, the Reaper powers and everything. If she opens up, she'll probably feel less alone. Because,
Okay.
Obvious is kind of
so
obvious.
What do I do?
She asked. She got no response. Many thoughts started churning again about how to fix this, how to try and use the bizarre shattered time of this realm to bring Mythal back, or find a way to go back and stop herself from ever getting the Reaper powers. She couldn't tell if any of these thoughts were spoken by that same inner voice, but they didn't feel the same. Alexis finally chose a thought for herself, and it was the first thing to finally give her some strength back.
Rings, if I were to stay here in this dimension for, I don't know, 6 months, would I be able to leave here and get back to my friends at basically the same time I left? No matter how long I stayed here?
according to Kaijurex, yes.
The purple ring floated down and simply read, "Yes." Alexis's mind was so chaotic that she started
Yes.
talking out loud to keep herself from getting lost in her thoughts.
Okay, so I have time. Leonoline could still find me, but... Rings, if Leonoline gets near me, would you be able to detect him and warn me?
Again, the simple answer was yes.
Yes.
Alexis nodded. Even if she would consider the idea of killing Tarsa, that didn't change that Leonoline was going to try and make her wipe out this entire dimension. But with how broken it was and isolated all the people were,
You know what? Technically, that could be like how all of this ends. It's like sorry, I almost said Alexa again. Alexis finally comes to terms with what she needs to do and accepts that sometimes you just have to kill. Doesn't matter if it's just, righteous, or even if it's just to put someone out of their mercy. It sometimes has to be done. And and then she takes his head. The realm disintegrates. She's released back to the exact moment of when she left.
Was it possible that was actually something Alexis needed to consider? The thought made her stomach sink even more. She couldn't focus on that now.
Okay. 6 months then. If I can figure out...
She paused, realizing she didn't even know what she needed to figure out. She just
Good
felt
luck.
so broken and defeated. But also realized she'd been feeling that way for a long time. Killing Mythal had just finally made it sink in.
I'm
Bolted
just
to the surface.
so completely sick and tired of Alexis Jones. I need to figure out how not to be. And if I haven't in 6 months, then I will just go into autopilot and let you Rings do whatever you've got to do for the multiverse yourselves. Got it?
Okay, that's a good
Again,
deal.
a simple yes. Alexis didn't
We
even feel
accept.
confident that she deserved to like herself now, but at least the idea of trying was giving her some strength. The big question now was simply where to start.
Yeah, this
After
is
1
big.
week alone in the mountains of F920, Alexis had finally managed to muster the strength within herself to say,
I have killed 2 people, and I killed Mythal out of hate.
it still made her entire body quake to
Wait, you killed 2 people? Huh.
say that, but she was able to accept it. Thoughts shrieked
Man, I should go back and really watch the episode that kind of invented the Reaper.
at her with excuses. When she'd killed the previous Reaper, she'd done it to keep her friend Koshmara from having to take on the role of the Reaper herself, and to
there it
stop
is.
the Reaper from wiping out Mara and Kate's entire universe, not to mention other friends and allies of theirs from that dimension, D667. Alexis thought she had come to terms with what she'd done there a while ago, but the more she tried to accept what she'd done to Mythal, the more she realized the guilt and agony was still in her from killing Barissia as well. It hurt to realize that she hadn't gotten past that, but she also started to notice that her thoughts about it revolved around how other people in her church and her friend group might judge her or think ill of her for it.
You have to judge
Her
yourself
friends had all
first.
asserted that they supported and appreciated that she'd killed the last Reaper, but she was realizing now that a part of her had never actually believed them. What do you think of you for having killed the last Reaper and Mythal? The quiet,
There you
comforting
go.
voice asked. It was still hard for Alexis to tell when that voice was speaking to her, with how many thoughts were raging through her at all times, but she'd at least caught on that that voice only ever asked her questions.
Never gave
I
answers.
think killing the last Reaper was...
She paused. Thoughts shrieked at her about how she wasn't a killer, but she fought through them.
It was justified. The right thing to do in the situation. Killing Mythal was a stupid mistake.
Was a moment of
Can you
pure
forgive
emotion.
yourself for it? The voice asked. Immediately, guilt sunk in. She was about to say no. Arguments bellowed through her mind about how she had to do it to save herself, then counter-arguments about how she could have stopped at any moment and just left, but again, she realized all of these thoughts were of her having imaginary arguments with people she was worried would never forgive her.
I don't know. I hope so, but I think I'll only be able to if I...
She froze, realizing what she was about to say, and her
Say it.
mind thundered again.
You're not a killer. You're not a killer. You're not... I need to kill Tarsa.
She
Yes.
practically screamed it. For the first instant she said it, her entire body felt incredibly relaxed, like the weight of the sky gently lifted from her shoulders,
Finally.
until the thoughts came in again. It would be a few more days before she could bring herself to say that with confidence once more. The arguments in her mind were relentless. Some days she felt exhausted and hopeless again, and some she felt determined and got fleeting moments of certainty. After 11 days in F920, she finally said,
I don't just need to kill Tarsa.
You have to.
I want to kill Tarsa.
That too.
Thoughts shrieked at her about what a terrible person that made her, but she drowned them out, saying,
I don't want to kill her out of hate. I want to kill her to protect people.
The thoughts raged louder. So you're going to condemn someone to hell for all eternity? What if that happened to you? It could, now that you're a murderer.
God is good. I don't even believe that he...
She froze,
Oh,
realizing what she was about to say. Guilt and fear shot through her as she tried to pretend she hadn't even had that thought. Then, the voice asked,
Was she about to say, hey, she's not even sure if God's real?
"Who are you worried will be mad at you for admitting you carry this belief?" Alexis looked around the quiet mountaintop, seeing very clearly that there was nobody around to hear her. Quietly, while realizing it fully for herself, she said, "I don't believe that hell is eternal, or at least that God would ever stop giving any of his children a chance to come home to him eventually." Again, she looked around,
Okay.
like she was waiting for a more devout Christian to run over the hills and scold her.
Like the actually mean. Just, actually.
Obviously, nobody did.
Am
Thanks for the laugh.
I just allowed to believe that?
She asked, letting loose a slight chuckle. It was her first time cracking a smile since she'd arrived. She got no answer, but she didn't feel like she needed one. Guilt started to set in again soon after, but that also just made Alexis realize, okay, I've got to do something other than just sit and think. "Do you like how you look as the Reaper?" Alexis heard the question, but thought at first it couldn't have been.
Actually, that is a good question. I mean, can't the Reaper outfit change to fit however you want? I mean, I assume the outfit she's wearing was just a default based on the last Reaper. So, if anything, hell, she literally could just be dressed like herself.
The same voice asking her the other questions. It seemed more like a random thought, but it still gave her an idea. "Hey, Rings, can I customize my armor and powers? Like, can I make that stupid ruby serpent into something other than a snake?" The
Yeah.
purple ring read, "Conscious armor reconstruction ability unlocked at level 63. Ruby serpent reconstruction available after challenge completion. Can I take that
Level 63, damn.
challenge while I'm here in F920? The rings did their best to guide her to a location in this realm where there were monsters to face and train against. There was a place and time where a group of chimeras had been created specifically to terrorize local towns or cities. Even after their creator died, the beasts continued to reproduce and became a rampant threat.
Oh,
There were
damn.
hundreds, if not thousands of them, over the span of a few hundred square miles.
Like a
The
chimera
creatures
queen.
varied in appearance depending on what timeline Alexis saw them through. She initially believed that made things more complicated for her. The monsters would randomly change shape and size mid-battle as they passed through different shattered timelines. One second she'd
I
be
kinda
fighting
like
a
that.
flesh and blood chimera, and the next, the same beast would appear to be a steampunk automaton.
Ooh,
At first,
I like
it threw
that.
Alexis off, but eventually she
Steampunk's always been badass.
realized the monsters and their abilities were changing in perception only. The changes didn't really require her to change tactics. Soon she found she was actually having fun, pushing herself to try new things with her Reaper abilities, and trying to work in more of her own original abilities, the mineral magnetism power she'd possessed even before gaining the Reaper rings. It felt like being a kid again and figuring out what her powers could do. Part of her felt
This whole timeline is just one big ass playground.
guilty for having fun after what she'd done, but those thoughts came less and less as the days went by. Alexis was only at level 42 of her Reaper abilities when she entered this realm, and it could take days at a time to increase even a single level. Still, it gave her something to do in between resting and contemplating how she could stop being so sick and tired of herself.
I wonder the level.
Something that filled her with terror early on, but was starting to offer her peace, was the idea that she could leave everything behind. She realized her friends were an incredibly forgiving group, even to a fault sometimes, so
A
they
little
likely
bit.
would forgive her for what she'd done to Mythil. Still, even if they didn't, Alexis had accepted that if she had to leave her friends, her church, everyone and everything behind, she could do it and still be okay. That feeling wasn't constantly present, and there were times where she felt guilty for being okay with leaving it all behind, but a question came back to her over and over to help set her back at ease, asked by that same peaceful, quiet voice within. Does it matter more to you?
That voice. I have a spontaneous theory. What if that's the voice of her sister? remember the previous overseer of her realm?
What others think of you, or what I think of you? The voice never said who it was or what it was, but Alexis knew who it felt like.
My theory just
Despite
proved
not
right.
having gone to church for the 2 months since she'd arrived to this realm, she had never felt closer to God. She spent time reflecting on every different era of her life while in F920.
I didn't think it was gonna be God.
It all felt like a completely different lifetime, like she was looking at the backstory of some character in a movie more so than seeing her own past. She saw her life before she'd even learned of the multiverse. She and Sterling worked for a group called the Agency of Supernatural Protection, fighting a different variety of demons from the ones they faced now. Those demons had been made by a being who called himself Lucifer. She knew now that he'd just been a variant of the devil from another universe who'd been trapped by Tarsa within a pocket dimension connected to Alexis's own world.
Wait, so is that Astra's father then?
But at the time, she had felt like she was getting a chance to be the hand of God, smiting the wicked beasts of the devil. Since Sterling had often answered to her in the field, she'd sort of seen him as being her flaming sword, like that wielded by the Archangel Michael. While the agency had been a covert organization at first, it eventually became public knowledge, and Alexis became a huge celebrity in the Christian community, a Christian battling the forces of the devil. It made her incredibly proud, but also put her on edge, constantly feeling a need to keep up a noble appearance and be a good example of her religion.
Instead of just
Various
being human?
public voices would arise to judge her for how she represented her people in that time. She always wanted to set a good example, but was often faced with the fact that being a good Christian meant different things to different people, even within her own community. After Lucifer had been defeated and Alexis learned about the multiverse, it became difficult to relate to the people of her church.
Okay, so this guy over here, this Lucifer, is this Astra's father? Because he did just say this was one trapped in a pocket dimension by Tarsa. And if we remember, Astra's father was a variant of Lucifer who was trapped in a pocket dimension by Tarsa. So is this indeed Astra's father?
She didn't consider herself superior to any of them, but she knew things about their reality that none of them were aware of. She didn't know how to cope with that before, and just did her best to ignore it. Now that she had space to think about it, to look at everything in her past more clearly, she realized that when it came to her faith, she hadn't really been considering what she believed was right or true, or what she believed God wanted for her. She'd just been thinking about how other Christians would judge her for what she did and what she believed. That finally helped her settle on a decision. She was going to kill Tarsa. It also made it easier now that she'd accepted that she wholeheartedly believed that God would never eternally abandon someone, that somehow, some way, he must give lost souls a chance to return to him, even after they've been cast into the abyss. With how she could now feel God within her, the pure goodness and love, there was no way she could believe that he'd ever eternally reject even his most wicked children.
Never.
Alexis believed that Tarsa would have an opportunity to repent, to come home to God. It would just be on her to decide whether or not to do so. That decision felt incredibly empowering within Alexis, but the most important lesson for Alexis hit her like a train. The realization came to her mid-battle with an octopus and ram-headed chimera. The thought struck her so forcefully that she stopped fighting and just laughed. That, of course, gave the beast a moment to strike her with its clubbed tail, sending her hurtling through the trunk of a thick tree before rolling onto a steel floor in another nearby timeline fragment. Still, she just lay there and laughed, repeating the thought over and over. No single human alive, no matter their position, no matter their status in the church, will ever be able to teach me more about God than God himself. For the first time in her life, Alexis genuinely felt like she...
That is the ultimate lesson. No mortal on earth can ever teach you about God. Only he himself can teach you about him.
Had a direct line to God. She thought she had felt that before, but only now that she'd spent enough time away from everyone else in her life did she realize that she'd just been repeating words other people had told her to believe. Now, she was getting in touch with what she truly believed. and she had never
Finally
felt
good.
more
It's
free.
finally heal.
Challenge completed, Ruby Serpent reconstruction available. The rings told Alexis 3 months into her time in F920.
3
It had
months,
been a
crap.
far more time-consuming challenge than any she'd attempted before, but she was glad to
You only got 3 more months to get your lesson, otherwise the rings take autopilot.
have had a lengthy task.
That was the deal.
She transported herself back to the mountain where she'd taken Mythal's life. She had felt enough of a connection to that place to use it as her own sort of nexus point, where she could always teleport back to in both time and space. She'd even
good
made
thinking.
herself a simple stone hut to shelter herself in. The first thing that came to mind to change the snake into was a lamb, but that didn't seem particularly intimidating. The righteous are as bold as a lion, Alexis said quietly before asserting, reconstruct the ruby serpent into a ruby lion.
Okay.
The rings affirmed that
There we go.
it was done. She flew one mountaintop over from her hut. Mineral reformation, ruby lion.
Here we
The ground
go.
around her burst into pieces, gathered together, and formed into a glimmering lion, twice as tall as Alexis. The creature shook its thick, shining mane and let out a thunderous roar,
Hell
and bowed its head
yes.
to her. Immediately, a swell of guilt churned through her. Do you not feel worthy to command a majestic lion as your aide? She didn't know how to answer that. Part of her wanted to say yes, and part no. She wasn't even sure if her
Now, I gotta wonder, what's the limitations? Like, could she make it any animal? Or does it have to actually be a real animal from Earth?
reason for saying no was because it's what she thought, or if other people would consider her arrogant for having chosen her ruby summon to be a creature she saw as representing the father. The right answers weren't always clear, but Alexis just said in a somewhat shaky voice, I'm only gonna call on this creature to do what I believe is God's will to be done. She felt enough
Fair
confidence in saying that to feel assured in her decision. Alexis continued her training into her 4th month in this realm. She had faced more challenges, reached level 59 of her Reaper powers,
Okay.
and unlocked 2
Four
new
more.
summons, like her Stone Assassin. The more she looked back at her old life, the more the old version of her just struck her as kind of pathetic. She appreciated that she'd been doing her best, but now
You
she
were a
saw how
little soft.
paralyzed she'd been by trying to keep up appearances to convince other people of who she was. Being separated from all aspects of her old life for so long had made her realize there really wasn't a point in her past where she'd just been the person that she wanted to be, unfiltered by worries of the bad or the good opinion of others. Though the closest she'd gotten before had been in her early days fighting with Sterling in the Agency of Supernatural Protection, and in the early days of meeting and working with her multiverse-traversing friends.
Before and after.
So, when she
Big
finally
being the
hit level
Reaper.
63, she reformed her standard Reaper armor to manifest into something much more like the suit she donned back then. It felt much more like a version of her she truly
Oh,
wanted
she made it level 63. Nice.
to be. Pieces of the old with the wisdom and confidence of the new. Feelings from her past still came up plenty of times, but she was getting better at facing them or ignoring them when they did. Still, into month 5, one thought started coming up more and more. The problem with this very dimension she was in.
Well, I think I called it. Before she leaves, she's finally going to do what he asked. Give mercy.
One morning, almost 6 months into her time in this realm, Alexis awoke, and the first thing she heard was that inner voice asking, "Do you want to go to church?" It struck her as an odd question. She was sure she could find a church in this realm, but being in a room with all those people in fragmented, isolated timelines seemed horrible. But that didn't change
like
the
it'd be
fact
cool,
that her
interesting.
instinctive response was yes. Unsure of why she was even doing it, Alexis flew into the city she'd seen from a distance for so long. It gave her a bit of a headache to look through the streets at all the colored prisms around people bustling through their separate lives and realities. But eventually, she did find a church. It looked like a dozen different buildings mashed together through different fragmented timelines.
Mega church. Sorry.
But it was clearly still a church. She guessed it must be Sunday as people were filtering in. She instinctively bound her Reaper rings around her wrist. She was clad only in the underlining of her armor, almost looking like someone in exercise gear. It didn't feel
I can
like
see
the right
that.
thing to be wearing to church, but she had no
Oh, wait, no, that's the outfit we just saw her in at the second part. On, this part over here.
other clothes, and besides, nobody was seeing her clearly anyway. She also hoped they wouldn't smell her clearly. She'd bathed in a river plenty of times, but hygiene hadn't been a top priority since arriving here.
Yeah, where you
She
going to
sat
get
near the
soap?
back of the church, as far from everyone else as she could. A man who appeared to be some variant of what she was familiar with as a priest stood at the front and began to speak. His words were both unfamiliar and familiar. He was telling a version of the parable of the prodigal son. It was a tale about a son losing his way and feeling unworthy of his father's love, but being embraced all the same when he chose to return home. Alexis hadn't even noticed that the tears had started spilling down her face, but no sermon had ever hit her as deeply as this one.
Perfectly
It
timed.
was like confirmation that, yes, in spite of everything you think you've done wrong, I will always welcome you home. Alexis felt a soft, warm embrace. There was nobody around her that she could see, but she could feel it. Thoughts came racing in again. She saw Mythal's lifeless body. She saw her own imaginings of her friends berating her. Thankfully, the quiet voice echoed through the others. Whether anyone else does, I forgive you. More tears spilled.
Okay, that voice is straight up God, and I am all for it!
But she nodded. I will use my powers for good. Real good. I will not kill out of hate ever again, but if I really genuinely feel it's your will, I will kill Tarsa. I won't be the Reaper for the Archons, but I will be for you.
Good
The
enough. I
embrace
love
seemed
it.
to wrap her more tight.
And I just realized this technically was like a whole telling of the Ghost Rider story. You know, a fallen archangel turned into a demon of wrath by the demons of hell to serve the devil, only for eventually it to just be like, hey, devil, fuck you, and return to the side of God.
In its love and safety. Now, seeing
Kind of.
how much of her life she'd spent with fragments of herself out seeking other people's approval, Alexis finally felt like, for the first time, she had truly come home. Alexis looked around and noticed that many others were moved by the sermon. None quite as much as her, but despite them all seeing and hearing different things, perceiving the events in different settings, languages, mindsets,
The story's all the
underlying
same.
message was still the same.
Message, right.
When that hit Alexis, she practically yelled out in shock. She clenched her lips shut, not wanting to interrupt, but she thought to herself,
There's nothing wrong with this dimension at all. There never has been.
She stayed through to the end of the sermon, but practically sprinted out of there when it was over. She saw two people with completely different reality frames walking and talking together. She got close behind them and just listened. They were having a conversation that was very confusing to her, but they clearly understood each other. They were laughing and chuckling and enjoying each other's company, despite having completely different reality frames. They weren't alone or miserable or isolated at all. They were just normal people living normal lives.
Exactly.
In whatever way they saw as their own normal. Alexis burst out laughing, and the two figures whipped around and stared at her
What the
like
hell's
she was
wrong with
crazy.
you?
She thought about trying to explain herself, but just turned and walked away from them, then watched more people. She spent the whole day just people watching, afraid she'd find some kind of proof that she was wrong, but there was none. Sure, there were some people who were angry, miserable, rude, but there were just as many happily living their lives, or at least living in a normal, neutral fashion.
Living some
Eventually,
kind of
Alexis
life.
soared up into the air over the city.
This world is completely fine. I mean, it's weird, but it's fine.
It is
Why
broken.
would I ever have to...
That's good.
She stopped mid-sentence.
Rings, can you help get me back to Leonoline? How do I get to his... whatever, his base, his personal nexus point?
The rings did their best to give her coordinates, but they could only help her teleport through space. The time she transported to seemed to be randomly different whenever she teleported. She did appear in the location of Leonoline's lab, but it looked
There you
completely
go.
different. Alexis teleported away and back, and it looked different again.
oof.
She did that over and over and over and over until
Good enough.
finally she appeared while he was there, flop sweating and spinning his overseer runes.
There
A
you are.
cascade of different orbs were floating in front of him, being linked with glowing lines. He was making another new monster, and looking up through the ceiling, she could see he had already made many more.
Leonoline, is this have you met me before? Alexis asked, still not understanding how time worked for her here. He whipped around. Bags hung from his eyes like water balloons. His pupils and those of the snake latched onto him glowed with a faint orange light. What, Reaper? You're back. You've changed your mind. Please, I don't want to hurt other realms with my monsters. Please, you just have to kill me. You have to save us all. Alexis stepped closer with a concerned but reassuring smile.
Let's see what you're gonna do.
No, I don't. Nobody needs to save you because this world is fine. Everyone might be seeing different realities, but none of them are alone. I mean, I'm sure some of them are, but not more than any other world. Just come and talk to some of them, or just watch them closely.
No. It's too hard to go near them. They're all so deluded.
He showed me how much I'm tormenting them all by keeping them alive.
He?
Alexis asked. He who? Who's he? Leonoline just shook his head and turned back to his work. If you won't do it willingly, I will make you do it. We can't live like this anymore. She walked up to try and grab him and turn him back around,
Can you
but
take the pallet
before
from
she
him?
could, a physical form swirled to life around the energies he was constructing.
Oh,
The beast
well, here we
thrashed
go.
its arms into Leonoline and sent him spinning backwards. Its own shriek sent the other beasts above into a frenzy. The 10-foot-tall monster, now leering down at Alexis, was like a humanoid goat with a serpent tongue and an arrow-tipped tail. Alexis
The Josie Devil? Did he just make the Josie Devil?
chuckled slightly, joking to her inner voice. A little on the nose, don't you think? The beast charged at her, horns
Oh, I guess it's just meant to be a devil.
first. Mineral reformation! Ruby Lion! The ground beneath Alexis crumbled and reformed into her majestic beast. It lunged forward, bit into the goat's horn, and hurled it into the wall, smashing through it and rolling out onto the cliffs upon which the lab stood. Alexis turned back to Leonoline as he was getting up, while summoning her Reaper Smoke to form a new version of her old red combat suit. I know you're scared, but I'll show you that you don't need to
Comfortable.
be, Leonoline. I stomped your beasts once, and I'll do it again. Then I will convince you, no matter how long it takes, that I don't need to kill anyone else in this world. I know that I need to reap Tarsa, but unless I feel from within that God wills otherwise, this world lives. Her own certainty felt like an engulfing aura of light around her. Alexis's Reaper ring suddenly
Glorious.
glowed bright in a way she'd never seen. They merged together and burned so bright they simply looked like a golden, glimmering halo.
Love it!
Did I do that? The goat beast came charging at Alexis again, and she thrust her hand forth. Instead of purple, golden smoke swirled out of her. Instead of her scythe, a new weapon appeared. Her jaw dropped as she swung the blade at her coming foe.
Oh, holy
the
crap.
goat fiend was struck with the blazing weapon and rocketed backwards, hurtling right off the cliff, only to sprout bat-like wings and catch itself in the air, surrounded by the other monsters. Regardless, Alexis was too distracted by her new
Love
weapon.
it!
Her new, golden, flaming sword. The light spilling off it warmed her like the light of the archangel she'd always envisioned wielding it. Tears swelled in her eyes again. Forgive my criticism, Lord. Be as on the nose as you want. Are you
Yep.
also alright
Be on the nose, it doesn't matter, it's awesome.
with being sent some help? Alexis's heart stopped and she whipped around. Tell me, Alexis, how much convincing will it take for me to prove to you that all of the dreadful things I said to you upon our last encounter were meant to
It's Mythal!
help you reach a point such as this? For a second, Alexis worried she was going insane, but there she was, in the flesh. Mythal was sauntering up behind Alexis, in perfect health, twirling a white shadow sword of her own. Alexis stammered. How?
Might not this
Before
soul
Mythal
connection.
could answer, she hurled her blade past Alexis, piercing the heart of the goat beast before it could reach them. Let's talk while we fight, shall we? I've very much been enjoying watching your little journey over the last few months, but I've been on a bit of a journey of my own as well. With that said, we've also clearly got lots of murder... I mean, much monster slaying to do.
There
Shall
you
we,
go.
Alexis? Still very confused, Alexis shook her head, laughing. All right, hey, do me a favor. While we're in combat, Call me the Reaper.
You got it, Reaper. Unless you want a full title, like almost a pet name, Slipback. The Reaper. Hey, the Reaper, get over here.
And the episode
Sorry.
before this one was very difficult to write, but this one just poured out of me so easily.
much
It felt
energy.
so good writing this story, because while I don't personally have the same religious views as Alexis, this entire story of hers and her ongoing arc is fueled by my own personal experience of having hit my rock bottom that launched me into the amazing life that I'm living now. I do want to point
I'm
out as
glad for
part
that,
of
man.
the positive or inspiring end note here that you're observing her story in a condensed form. The actual growth that you go to takes longer. I mean, we were
Very
seeing
long.
her over the course of a few months, but condensed into half an hour, whereas when you're actually going through this growth, it does take you months and years to go through the growth. But it is
That's right.
also so completely worth it.
I
And
mean, you can't compact it all down into a 40-minute vid.
every incremental improvement that you get
the
to
40
helps
minutes, I
you
mean.
see how much better things can just keep getting. For the positive or inspiring end note, I feel like there's a lot of things I could pull from this actual episode and
Quite
what
a few.
happens in it, but I think the one I want to leave you on is the idea that regardless of what your life views, religious, spiritual, whatever kind of views are, there is no single human being on this planet that has the power to tell you what your connection to yourself, to God, the divines, to source,
To
whatever
whatever.
you want to call it, your intuition. No one else on the planet will ever have the power to know how you're supposed to connect with that better than you.
Yes.
There are definitely lots of people that can help point you in the right direction and practices that can do that, but nobody can actually take that journey for you. You have to take it for yourself. The only
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
gatekeeper to you becoming the most authentic, true version of yourself is you. And usually you masked in the words and opinions of other people that have been burned into your mind. But
Got a
anyone
point
can
there.
overcome that and become their best selves. Which often happens more easily if you can isolate yourself from other people for a little bit. At least that's what
Yeah.
I've found. But like I said,
Got a
there's no
point.
one pathway that works for everyone. You've got to find your path yourself. I hope that's inspiring or encouraging in some way. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next video on Monday. Goodbye.
Alright everyone, that's going to be the end of tonight's video, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of you next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.